I've got a 6-year-old, so all the coffee. Drawing cartoons for Disney was number one. My sex life was terrible, and then I read one of your books, and now it's awesome. And I'm like, yes.
Welcome to another episode of Women Authors Crushing It. Before I get started, can I please remind you to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future episodes? And if you enjoy this episode, please don't forget to give it a like too. So today I am so excited to be joined by our WACI guest, one of my most favourite people to hang out with, the fabulous Cara Clare. Cara,
Hi.
welcome.
Thank you for having me. This is so exciting.
Oh, thank you so much for joining us. So the first question, as always, is what are you drinking?
Really boring. It's coffee. It's coffee. I just thought
coffee.
Before midday.
You know, I don't like coffee. I don't like coffee at all.
You don't like coffee?
No,
and I mean, I've got a 6-year-old, so all the coffee.
What about tea? Are you a tea drinker as well?
You know what? I used to be, and now it's all about the coffee.
Yeah, I don't like tea either. I only like green tea. I know. It's a bit like a child when people ask if you drink tea or coffee, because Jake's the same. And no, we don't have either. We sound like children, but I drink green tea.
Shock on my face. I'm confused.
No black tea.
Like that,
no
though.
coffee.
She doesn't drink any hot drinks apart. She might have a hot chocolate every now and again, but that's it.
No,
I don't know people.
Like, I really like the smell of coffee, but no coffee, no tea. They're just too bitter. There we go.
Well, that's why you need loads of sugar.
That is a route I could
coffee with down. Loads of sugar is what I'm drinking.
I'm doing it wrong. Amazing. So you can see that this podcast is very much focused on books, not just coffee and drinks. All right, let's get on to the purpose of the podcast, which is bookishness. And can you just tell us a little bit about how your author journey began?
You know what? I always try to make this brief, and it's always a really long-winded answer. So interrupt me if I'm waffling too long.
No, go for
it. So I was literally that kid that was like, always wanted to write stories. Always. Like my parents moved house a while ago, and they found like a list of what I wanted to be when I grew up. And being an author was number 2. Drawing cartoons for Disney was number 1. Okay. But I can't draw for toffee. So, and so you know what? It's funny actually, because if you think about how much things have changed in such a short space of time, like when I went to uni, Kindle wasn't a thing, like all of that stuff. It just, being an indie author wasn't a viable career option. So being an author didn't feel like a viable career option. So I did English. Then I went and did a publishing MA, worked in academic publishing for ages. And then the year I turned 30, so 2016, I was like, if I don't write a book before I get married, have a baby, all of this sort of stuff, it's going to be one of those things that I never do. So I gave myself 6 months to write the first draft. It wasn't awful, but it was not to market. It was, everybody writes a YA fantasy that's a little bit loopy, don't they?
Was that?
Well, I started off with this YA thing. So I started off with a YA thing. Then wrote another random YA thing. So it took a while to come around to actually really understanding what writing to market was, and the fact that I wanted this to be a career. And I think part of that was actually starting to believe that I could do it. There was a little bit of like, oh, well, if I don't try too hard, I won't know if I fail. So I think 2020 was when I started writing women's fiction, and I thought I was writing to market. I thought I was writing sweet romance. I wasn't writing sweet romance. I was writing women's fiction. And that did okay. It reached a level of income that was fine, but not what I wanted. It wasn't enough to be like, right, this is my full-time thing. This is going to support me and my family, all that kind of stuff. So I think skip forward to the beginning of 2021, and I started researching smut because I was like, all the groups, everybody was writing reverse harem. And it was one of those things where I was like, well, I can't write that. I've never written anything like that. It's not for me. And then I started reading it, and it was the most fun I've ever had reading in a genre. I was just like, this is pure escapism, so much fun. And so that was when the Cara Clare book started, was sort of mid 2021, I think. And then the first one came out in 2022. I'm getting confused in my timelines, but it was pretty recent.
That's amazing.
That's where we are now. So now it's just the spicy reverse harem Cara Clare books, the ones that are my passion, and also the things that are making my money.
Which, like, you couldn't ask for more, really.
Exactly.
Like that's what you want.
Yeah.
You know what, there are so many things that you said that resonated with me, not just the random YA as your first book, because I was definitely there too. Although, to be fair with mine, I think it's still the best concept for a book I've ever had, and I will revisit it.
I'm going to rewrite mine too. I think it was before its time.
Yeah. But a couple of things, like what you said about having a deadline and giving yourself 6 months, I think is so important for the people out there who are like, oh, I'm going to write a book. I think there are so many people like, at some point I'm going to write a book, at some point I'm going to do it. And I think if you're going to commit, giving yourself that time. I mean, I have this thing where I think it can take you 4 months to write a decent first draft if you're committed, and not overly committed, not like putting everything in, losing your life, but you need to commit. And I think doing that, showing that you're like doing that amount of time, is such a lesson for people to take away, that it didn't just happen organically by osmosis type thing. It was like, this is my deadline, this is how I'm doing.
And funnily enough, that was probably the only deadline I've ever stuck to. Since then it's all gone to pot. But yeah, I think when you're starting as well, that's how you end up working on the same book for 4 or 5 years. And also because it's so hard when you start to know where the stopping point is. Like, you can always make it better. You want to keep going. You want to keep rehashing it. There's got to be a point where you go, right, that's the first draft. I've finished. And now I'm going to edit. And I think it took me a lot longer to edit it, actually. I think I was editing it for about 10 months, which now I don't edit for that long. But with your first one, especially, it takes time. But if you don't have a goal, then that's the difference between the people who really, really want it and the people who sort of want it, but I'm gonna, just faff about with it for a while.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely on the money with that. The other thing you said that resonated so strongly with me is well, if I don't really try, I've never really failed. I think that some of us, I'm sure I'm not alone in feeling that. And I was like that with sort of music growing up and writing growing up. If I don't really try, then I haven't failed, have I? But if you don't really try, you definitely haven't succeeded.
Exactly. And I don't think it's necessarily even a conscious thing. It's just looking back, it's very obvious to me that that's what I was doing, because I wrote the first in the YA series. It didn't really sell very many, but we all know now that you've got to have more than one out before you start. And I kind of went, well, that didn't work, so I'll do the next thing. And then that was something quite random. And then it was all just, I was trying, I did want it, but I think there was always that thing in the back of my head that was holding me back a little bit.
Just a subconscious barrier, isn't it?
Just
self-sabotage. Oh, well, look at that. Thank you. That was some really good questions. I feel like we got a lot out of a single question there. Thank you. So what's the craziest or most unexpected thing that's happened to you since you started this author journey?
It's all crazy. It's being on a podcast. Like, it's all. So for me, things started to change probably 2022 in the summer, when I went to one of the 20 books get-togethers with a bunch of authors in Cambridge. And that was kind of about the same time that my spicy books were starting to take off. And that was when everything just sort of slotted into place. And I look back at that time and I just can't believe now that I've got friends who are in a very similar place to me, friends who are a similar mindset. So for me, it's not just the writing stuff. It's like, my whole life has changed since this whole thing started. I might get emotional and start crying. I think probably the moment where I was like, oh my God, was when I went to an indie author mastermind group thing, which was just one of those things that you usually look at from the outside and go, oh, well, but that's not me. And then I got an invite and I was like, oh my God, this is just, and I still pinch myself and just think, I can't believe that I've reached the level that I'm at, I guess.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And it's not going to stop, is it? That's
no, I know. Well, I hope not.
No, fingers crossed, we keep working it. All right. So one of the things, obviously, you're doing well, and we know you're doing well, but success is different to everybody. So when we have people on here, I'm always like, what's your definition of success? What does it mean to be successful for you?
Yeah, I think that's really important, because especially in a lot of the groups that you hang out in, people's, like you said, people's version of being a full-time author is different. People's, what that looks like. So for me, financial freedom is important. Like, I don't want to buy a yacht, but I want to have the money to support my family, to be flexible in the way that I live as well. So for me, that's what it looks like. I have a lifestyle now where I can work wherever I want to. I am making good money. I'd like to make some more, but and people are enjoying my books, like the readers and the connection that I've got with my readers, like that is huge. And that's something that really only the spicy books, that's something I've started to experience. So for me, it's a three-pronged thing. Like, the money's important, but it's also the freedom and knowing that I'm giving some value to people. Like, when I get comments from people saying, like, my sex life was terrible, and then I read one of your books and now it's awesome, and I'm like, yes.
That is amazing. Yes, no one has ever said that to me about mine. I would find that a bit strange. That's, yeah, the connections with the authors, though, like they make such a difference. And if there are readers listening to this who are like, oh, I really want to tell this author that I love their book, but I don't feel comfortable doing that, do it. They love it. Like, it's so nice when we get an email just saying that this bit you really resonated with, or you can't wait to read the next, whatever it is. It makes our day every time.
Those are the things that keep you going. Like, when you see those comments, or you get those emails, or you go to an author event, like at Rare last year, I remember people coming up and being kind of shaky speaking to me, and I'm sitting there shaking speaking to them, because I'm like, I'm really nervous. And that's the thing, is like, that it just means so much. And if you're having a rubbish day, you're doubting yourself, your edits are going horribly, you're in that bit where you're like, it's all rubbish, I'm just going to throw it in the bin. Those little comments are just gold dust.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've talked a bit about your books, because we've talked about your journey here, but so can you tell me about, like, your latest ones, what you're working on at the minute?
Yeah, so my main core series, it's Paranormal Reverse Harem. There were 6 books that I rapid released, and I had in mind an idea for 3 more, but I didn't want to write them unless there was an appetite for them, because the main storyline was very much tied up. It really did end, and I didn't want to be one of those people that just drags it out to kind of get a bit more money. I was only going to do it if the fans wanted it, so I left it a while. I wrote a spicy Jungle Book retelling that did terribly, but I super enjoyed it. And then, so since October, I've been doing these extra 3 in my main series. But they're also introducing characters from my next series, which is going to be in the same world. Some of the characters are going to cross over. And it's been really fun to revisit those same characters. I couldn't believe how easy it was to get back into writing it, because I hadn't written those characters for at least 6 months. And then to go back to them, it was like, oh, I remember all your voices. I remember how it makes us sound loopy. Like, it was so easy, but then also to introduce the new ones and to have people responding positively to them. So that one, I actually had to push back the final one, because I moved house, everything went a bit crazy. And because it really is going to be the last one, I didn't want it to be anything other than the best it can be. Yeah. So that's going to come out at the end of March. And then I'm moving on to Mafia Vampires, which I am so excited about.
Spicy mafia vampires.
Very spicy. Yeah. I mean, is there anything more mafia than a vampire?
No, absolutely not. I agree. So you're writing some collaborations. Is this one a collaboration? And can you tell me?
So the Mafia Vampire one, it started off as a group of authors. We all so mafia romance is huge right now. Vampires are always, vampires never die. That never gets a lot. So we were all like, well, why don't we make Mafia Vampire a genre? We'll all write something. So a bunch of us were going to do it in a shared world. We were going to make it so that we're all kind of in charge of our own territory in the same world. I can't do that because mine ties into another one of my series. And there's a couple of authors who've said, I don't think we can do the shared world, but we're going to all support each other. We're all going to be writing similar things, and we're going to kind of try and give it a marketing push, like all at the same time.
Yeah.
So that's that one. I then collaborated with our friend Adam Beswick on so he wanted a spicy, he writes dark fantasy retellings. He does not write spice. He had an idea for a spicy Cupid retelling. And I was like, okay. And he was bugging me to write it for him, basically to ghostwrite it, collaborate on it. And I kept saying no until when I saw the outline, I was like, actually, this is awesome. So we collaborated on that, which was amazing. Like, it's working with a friend, and also Adam's ideas and the way he plans things in his world are just crazy. So that was incredibly fun. It was a novella, and it came out on Valentine's Day, I think it came out. And I think he just wanted to make it very clear that he was not the one that wrote the spice.
Yeah, brilliant. So I love it. Yeah, I love the idea of collaboration, and it is something, but yeah, you know, you're going to have to find a balance, aren't you? I think
it's difficult. And it's also, so I was collaborating, and it's quite interesting actually to have the different points of view of how things can work out. I was collaborating with my sister on a book, which was a sort of slower burn but spicy vampire book. And that one we decided to part ways because our styles are very different. The way we work is very different. I'm quite chaotic. She's very organized. It also became more of her idea than my idea. Like, she was super passionate about it. She was really putting more into it than I was. And so we had a chat about it, and she was like, yeah, I think I feel better about taking it forward on my own. I felt better about that. And she's absolutely smashing it now. It's awesome. So I think it's important before you start, if you are going to collaborate, to think about how you work, not just whether you like each other, not just if your writing styles are going to be similar, not just, you know, do we have a laugh, but actually how you do your writing, how you deliver, how are you with deadlines, like how do you respond to feedback, all of those kind of things. And if you can get those right, then it's super fun. But also be able to just have a conversation. Like, it wasn't a big deal because we were able to have an open conversation about it, and we both said, like, this is the right thing for the book and the project. But if you can't communicate properly, then it can be, I know people who've had stressful experiences collaborating instead of nice ones.
I can imagine. I don't know if I'd be able to sort of loosen my reins enough.
Yeah, it's difficult. And we're used to working on our own. We're used to not having to work to anyone else's timescale or deadlines. And also, when you've got multiple projects going on, you're not then just fitting in your own projects, you're trying to work around their projects as well, because you've got to figure out when you're going to do stuff, and it does get really complicated. So it can be fun but also challenging.
So people to bear that in mind. All right, so just got a couple of questions left. One that we always ask, if you could be one of your characters for a day, who would it be?
100% Nova. She's got 5 boyfriends and they're all really hot.
No thinking about that whatsoever.
No question.
Love it. So that
only for a day, because I mean, after a day it would get tiring. A day's fine.
Yeah, you've got 5 men to clean the house, one to cook, one to
and they do, because they're fantasy men, so they are perfect in every way.
Mine cleans the house and doesn't cook. That's a nice.
Probably for the best.
Yes, I'm going into domestic labour. Not go there. So last thing, which is quite important, is where can people listening find your books?
So they're all on Amazon, caraclaire.com. I sell like paperbacks and stuff direct from there, but everything else is in KU. And my biggest social media thing is on TikTok. So just Cara Clare on TikTok, and then you'll see all the stuff. Amazing.
Thank you. We will pop links to that somewhere on there for me. Amazing. Cara, thank you so much for coming today and chatting to me. It has been absolutely lovely. Forgot the word, couldn't speak there. So yes, as I've said, can you tell that I'm just checking what I have to say at the end, because I still haven't got the hang of this. So
you need Jake in the corner going, like, holding up prompts.
You see, Cara knows me, can you tell? She knows need help. So Cara's social links are all found below. Don't forget to please like today's episode if you enjoyed it, which why wouldn't you have done? It was a lovely chat. Comment if there's anything you want me or Cara to ask Cara, then please go ahead and comment. And also don't forget that subscribe, because it really, really helps me out. That is today from our WACI Women Authors Crushing It. Cara, thank you very, very much.